American Nightmare and Hybrid Moments, mixing doo-wop, simplicity, which is I love. I would take a simple melody that's just soaring over 3 or 4 chords any day over the longest, most complex, technically proficient, perfectly played musicianship ever. Something resonates with me with a melody. And this album has it. And then on top of it, image-wise, lyrically, there's nothing better. You can just tell that this was in his DNA. He grew up sitting in front of a TV watching horror movies, had some fucking dark thoughts in his mind, and was listening to Elvis. And it wasn't like a manufactured thing. It was like this existed within this group of misfits. And it's so real to me. It's out of tune. It's obnoxious. And it's just perfect. Like, just perfect.
I've known proves that it's right because you're mine. I walk the line.
When I was first really falling in love with music at about my early teens, maybe like 12 years old, I was driving with my parents and we were like on a road trip, and Ghost Riders in the Sky came on. And I didn't have any genre of music that I liked. I just liked what I liked. And I heard that song and it was just so wild to me and so dark. And I'd never heard anything like it. And my mom had told my grandfather, like, oh, Zach really liked Ghost Riders in the Sky. And he bought me that album in CD form. I went and listened to it and I loved the storytelling. And looking back now, I love the fact that his voice is so imperfect. He doesn't sound like a modern country singer. He doesn't sound like, Tom Jones or whoever at the time just had a wonderful voice. He's got a pretty shitty, unique voice. And it's so cool. And then the stories that he would tell, and there's really sad songs. There's really hopeful songs. There's funny songs. It just hit the mark for me at a very young age. I was never the biggest fan of the new wave style Killers, Hot Fuss, dancey stuff at the time. And then Sam's Town came out and I would hear some of the songs on the radio and I was like, these are better written songs. There's a Bruce Springsteen sort of influence. And I went and I listened to the album while we were on tour and fell completely in love with it because it was a very desert album. It reminded me of taking the trip from Orange County to driving to Vegas, going through Baker and Barstow, driving through the desert with my friends, the hundreds of times that we've done it throughout my life. Even from recording the Backcountry video and going to these old shitty casinos with broken lights and overaged cocktail waitresses, glitz and glamour of Vegas, but it's also dark and dirty and dingy. Brandon Flowers hit it out of the park and captured all of this and put it into an album. And I felt like where he was coming from, and it felt so real. I was like, okay, this is authentic.
I wanna ride like Kate in the way back when. Sleep next to the river here.
I came across this album because I was seeing the name around. I saw that he had kind of this renegade attitude towards country music, ex-military guy that was writing these songs and has a really great, unique voice. And I was like, I'm going to give it a listen. I want to see what it's all about. And I was like, this is really, really great songwriting. It feels so different than completely overproduced, overpolished, let's call it pop country. You could feel this disdain for the establishment in the music, and you could feel just a sense of humanity in it. And it didn't feel like these were all a bunch of songs written in a session with a bunch of session writers and then, trying to manufacture a hit. It just sounded like somebody that was kind of pissed off at the world that wanted to write songs, and they resonated with people, and he got real famous, and he doesn't give a fuck about being famous, doesn't even want to be famous, just wants to write these songs. I love Social Distortion. I love the rockabilly stuff. I love that his voice is so unique. And And when I use the term shitty for someone like Johnny Cash or Bob Dylan or Mike Ness, it's a fucking compliment. Because all these trained professional singers that's all they have to offer is a good voice. It's so annoying to me. Like, I want to hear real. I want to hear people sing. I want individuality. I want uniqueness. And he went out there and had success as a punk rock singer with a crazy, gritty, nasally voice. And when you kick into Dear Lover, it's so simple. Just, just stomp, dun, 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 dun. Nothing to it. It's completely raw, completely bare. And then there's these lyrics that are painful, and he's telling a story. And then you go into Don't Drag Me Down, and he's obviously still fucking pissed off. He's a grown man. He's pissed off at the system. He's always been pissed off at the system. It's very real. When you get to a song like When the Angels Sing, it's him reflecting on his life. It feels like the most honest album. And I feel like you have to get to a certain point in life where you've lived enough life to just be honest, being able to reflect on your life is so much more important than just like writing songs and being starry-eyed and being, 15 years old, watching them play those songs live, getting kicked in the face with a fucking Doc Martin. It's kind of cool. I love just really depressing, drawn out, over reverberated, slow, sultry songs. They're just so dark. And she came on the scene and just captured that perfectly. I felt like her lyrics were very real and personal, and she's got an incredible voice. And what put her on the radar for me at that time was she had done a Saturday Night Live performance, was completely lambasted by critics. Everyone was like, the worst performance we've ever seen. Who let her up there? And I was like, okay, I got to go see what all these people are fucking talking about. I went back and watched it, and I see this beautiful girl up there with an incredible voice standing there looking like she almost had just slit her own wrists, singing these fucking songs. And I was like, this is absolutely incredible. She's a star. This is going to resonate with people. I went out that day, found the album, saw the cover, Born to Die. I was like, this is incredible. Went and listened to it. It became one of my entire band's favorite albums. I listened to it over and over and over. And it was just truly art. And then from there, she blew up. And I was like, that just goes to show, if you're true to yourself, you go there with your vision, you do what you do, people are going to throw stones at you. They're going to, Avenged is no stranger to it. We do what we do. Oh, it's the worst thing we've ever heard. We hate this. It's like, no, you just don't understand it. It scares you. Maybe you'll come back around. Maybe you won't. I don't care. We're doing it for us. The best, my favorite artists create. I'm completely shocked and surprised and appalled. And later down the road, I'm like, oh, I get it now. And I feel like that she had done that completely with that album. When it comes to perfect albums, we've had these debates on so many nights with, me and Brian and Matt and Johnny. And one time, Chris Jericho, we were all sitting there drinking vodka, like, what's a perfect album? And we'd be like, well, maybe Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. And we're like, this song's maybe an 8 out of 10. We're like, what's a 10 out of 10 album? And I was like, I think the Weezer Blue album might be the closest thing to perfect. And everyone's light bulb kind of went off in everyone's head. And they're like, is there a bad moment on that album, or a bad note, or a bad song? It's simple. It's completely unique. The songwriting's brilliant. He's such an incredible songwriter, just incredible. Like, he fully embraces who and what he is. It wasn't an act. He's a strange, thoughtful, individual. It's completely him. It's real. It's honest. It's so rare. When I saw the video and heard the song Buddy Holly, and it has those doo-wop elements, it was almost like it could have been a smash hit way ahead of its time. My favorite guitar line in all of history is the, 3-second. Like, I think that's the most standout guitar line in all of history for me.
She lost her sparkle, she isn't the same. Living on reds, vitamin C and cocaine.
When we started working with Wes Lang. Me and Matt would go down to his warehouse where he does all his art. And he had worked with the Grateful Dead on some of their art. And I was like, it makes sense because their art's fucking awesome. Like, too bad the band sucked. Me and him always related over the Misfits. It's our favorite band. And we talk about Misfit stuff. We get each other Misfit shirts. And he's like, Grateful Dead is my favorite band of all time. And I was like, because like, you like the art? He's like, no, you got to listen to it. And I was like, okay. So when we were recording Life is But a Dream, we were flying back and forth to Pennsylvania where Andy Wallace was mixing the album. And I put on Grateful Dead, just trying to get into it. And I started listening to the lyrics and the playing. It's unlike anybody else. And it put me in this vibe where I felt like it was sending me to when me and my dad picked up motorcycles and we started riding together, and these moments of riding these motorcycles down dusty roads in Arizona or wherever, watch the movie Easy Rider. There's prostitutes and there's drugs and there's people with addictions and going to jail. And it started reminding me of like people that I knew that had gotten into trouble with the jail. It's some fucking petty stuff. And you start listening to the lyrics of the Grateful Dead and it's like, they're telling all these stories of the common man, of like all my shitty friends that I've grown up with and myself, like getting in trouble for fucking carrying a little bag of weed or, and their storytelling so great. And you're like, oh, these dudes are just a bunch of potheads and, druggy dudes from San Francisco, just jamming these songs with incredible artwork and incredible vision. They didn't care about being on the radio. They didn't care about anything but making music, telling a story to the common shithead, let's call it that, like myself. And I was like, I get it. This is as American as it gets. Like, this is just, it's so cool. And that particular album is my favorite. Like the last song of the album, Truckin', is my favorite song of theirs.
You taught me how I pray the fool. Every mistake that I made.
These Midwestern guys from Kansas City, their names started popping up when I was in high school doing my own bands. I like, punk rock stuff. I was listening to, kind of leaning over back and forth between kind of like more poppy punk stuff and the heavier punk rock stuff, and getting into the hardcore scene and bands like AFI out the gates, 18 Visions and Throwdown and Poison the Well and Earth Crisis and Snapcase and all this shit. And for some reason within the hardcore scene in Orange County, there was two very unique approaches. The heaviest bands were inspired in listening to the Smiths and Sunny Day Real Estate. And it was like, well, you guys listen to fucking Earth Crisis and you're listening to the Smiths? And I was like, okay. So like I started listening to softer stuff. The Get Up Kids were coming through playing shows and getting a lot of attention, in the emo scene. And I was like, I really like this music because I like, softer, like melodic punk rock and stuff. I really like this guy's voice. And then I listened to that album and the songwriting was just so great to me. The storytelling, such a unique voice. Every time I go back and listen to that album from the time I was, 15 years old until now, I'm just like, this is so perfect. We had toured Warped Tour, 2003, 2004, 2005. And Hot Water Music was always the band that all the other punk rock bands respected. Chuck has the craziest voice. I mean, they both have the craziest voice. They both have similar crazy voices on that particular album. And it just starts out with Remedy, I Need a Remedy of Diesel and Dust. Like I was like this is gritty. This is very real. And then that album, to have that kind of voice, but to have these beautiful melodies. There's nothing that sounds like them. And now I get why they were so respected amongst all the other punk rockers on that tour. And I was like, dude, this is incredible. And I definitely encourage people to go and give that album a chance because that was the one that got me into it. And then from there, there's just so much good stuff.
Black coat, white shoes, black hat, Cadillac, yeah. The boys are time bombers. Black coat, white shoes, black hat, Cadillac, yeah.
So my only qualm with that album is that there's too many songs, because after like the first 15 songs, I lost my attention span. But beyond that, it's one of the greatest albums ever. Tim and Lars have the best voices, such brilliant songwriting. It's got melodic punk elements. It's got pop elements. It's, reggae influenced. but nobody can sound like them. Matt Freeman's the best bass player punk rock's ever heard, as far as I'm concerned. I don't even think it's debatable. It's my absolute pinnacle for best sounding album ever. You can hear everything. It's raw. It's mixed perfectly. So like, I was like, okay, this is one of my favorite albums growing up. I love everything about Rancid. They're fucking cool factors off the charts. The way they look, they're real, they're authentic. They're fucking in Operation Ivy. Like everything about it's so cool. And then also it's like, oh, the production's amazing too. Like this album can stand up with, you know, what people consider the very best, you know, the Back in Blacks. And I was like, this album sounds better to me with everything that's going on in it. Which is a perfect album, mastered by Harry Weinberg. And that's who I chose to master my album, because I was like, this is my favorite sounding album of all time. I was like fingers crossed, like, will you master this album? Because that's the one thing that when I recorded the album, it was really important to just finish it off to where it had that little extra boost that I really was looking for. And I was like, of all the people who can do that. And I remember that, you know, and Out Come the Wolves, one of my favorite albums. And he mastered it, and it literally just took it to a level. And I was like, thank you, Rancid. Thank you, Out Come the Wolves, thank you so much for being created to lend me that little extra to make this album. And then, you know, once it was mastered, I was like, I feel so good about putting this out. Like whatever happens with it, I have zero expectations, but I've got to use some of the tools that my favorite bands of all time have used. And if I die today, like this gets to exist in the universe. And I was like, this is perfect.